I think it's wonderful what you're doing here. And have you been part of any conversation with other leaders about how to have national preparedness so that every community isn't going through this and finding their own way, but really like creating a model for the rest of the communities across the country?
I do think that that's part of the work that we've been doing with some of the legislation that we've passed. So, for example, one of the bills that I spoke about earlier, which was tenant protections, making sure that landlords are held accountable for doing smoke and ash remediation, and landlords are not able to charge tenants when the unit has been damaged and is uninhabitable. Those are things that are now permanent in law, so anybody that experiences a disaster after this is able to benefit from those. With the Generational Homeownership Protection Act, we actually wanted it to be law entirely, that when you go through a disaster like this one, that if your documents are not up to date, if you have not transferred title, that you're not held liable for that. Unfortunately, through negotiations, we were forced to amend it to only be applicable to the LA fires that happened last year. But that was a bill that I wanted to see made permanent, because this is something that happens anytime a disaster strikes throughout the country. And I'd say more largely, I work with folks across the country. I have friends who are legislators in Texas and Arizona, in Kentucky. We are seeing these disasters strike everywhere, and we are trying to think differently about how to respond. The president is currently trying to get rid of and eliminate FEMA. We need to keep FEMA, but FEMA needs to be reformed, and it needs to work better for survivors, and that is the approach that we need to take.
And do you have any idea how that can happen? I was actually a flood victim 3 years ago, and I got FEMA for 18 months, and it was a nightmare just getting, what I did, and it was not enough. Have you been working with anyone in FEMA, or do you have any specific ideas?
So, I've met a lot of FEMA workers because of everything that's taken place here. Many of those employees have unfortunately been laid off. As you know, there's been massive layoffs that have happened on the federal government's end. I'd say that right now what it has been is a discussion about how we might come together with other legislators from across the country to drive the reforms that we need. I don't think that we're necessarily come up with a kind of solid vision of what this reform should look like, but we know right now it's not working. The Department of Homeland Security Secretary Christy Noem recently changed policy to make it so that she must sign off on any cost that is over $100,000. That has drastically slowed down aid that has gone out to victims, not just here in Altadena, but in Texas, in places like Kentucky that have saw major floods. It's decisions like that that need to be undone. We cannot be delaying aid to survivors.
And my last question, if President Trump, if there's a movement to impeach him, are you going to support that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I cannot even begin to explain how shocking this past year has been. President Trump has still not come to visit Altadena. He skipped over Altadena and went to the city of Las Vegas for a campaign rally, and frankly, I think has treated us like the bottom of his shoe. It has been embarrassing, and he has used the position of president to benefit himself and his donors. It is absolutely unacceptable, and it has just been utterly shocking. And once he is out of office, we need to make major changes and reforms to prevent corruption like this from happening again.
Thank you so much.